My husband's sister demanded his nieces and nephews perform a dance at our wedding. We said no because none of the kids wanted it. She screamed at him in the car that he was ruining her life and playing favorites. And then she stood in a bathroom stall, wailing during our ceremony, while literally nobody in that room even turned around. Our wedding day actually happened. My husband's own sister was locked in a bathroom stall wailing like someone had died, and not one single person at that reception got up to check on her. Not even her own mother at first. I promise you we'll get there. But I need to back up, because none of that makes sense unless you understand exactly what kind of family I married into. So here's where it starts. My husband and I got legally married a while back. Quietly, just the paperwork. Because my mom was in the middle of chemo and radiation for a pretty rare cancer, and neither of us wanted to plan some big, elaborate thing while she was fighting for her life. We figured once she's through the worst of it, once she's got some strength back, that's when we do the real ceremony. The dress, the vows in front of everyone, the whole thing. So for months we were legally husband and wife, just quietly waiting to actually celebrate it the way we wanted to. Now my husband's family. Okay, let me paint this picture, because you need the background before anything else makes sense. His parents are, and I say this with zero hesitation, racist. Not old and a little ignorant, genuinely racist. When he first showed them a photo of me, because I'm mixed race, the reaction on their faces was not subtle. They tried to recover. They said the right words eventually. But my husband saw it. He saw exactly what that first flinch meant. And honestly, so did I once I heard the story secondhand. They're the kind of people who are very good at hiding it in public and then letting it slip out in private moments when they think no one's paying attention. Then there's his brother. Racist, alcoholic, verbally abusive to my husband for years. My husband used to basically bankroll parts of that household, while his brother screamed at him and treated him like garbage. He's since cut his brother off completely. Doesn't speak to him. Wasn't invited to our wedding, wasn't there. And then there's his sister. I'm going to call her Renee here. That's not her real name, but you'll know exactly who I mean by the end of this. Renee used my husband as a free, unlimited, no-notice babysitting service for years. I mean, years. He'd work a full 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, come home exhausted, and she would just show up on a Friday night, drop her kids on his doorstep, and disappear for however long she wanted. No asking. No, hey, are you free this weekend? Just, here are the kids. See you whenever. He vented to me about it constantly in the early days of us dating, and I remember just sitting there thinking, why do you keep letting this happen? So eventually I sat him down, gently, and said something like, babe, you know you're allowed to say no to her, right? You know this isn't normal? And something clicked. Over the last 2 years, he slowly started drawing actual boundaries with his family for pretty much the first time in his adult life. He cut the on-demand babysitting down to almost nothing. He started saying no. And watching him do that, watching him grow that spine after a lifetime of being everyone's doormat, honestly, I have never been more proud of anyone, so that's the family. That's who we're dealing with. Keep all of that in your head, because it matters for what's coming. Fast forward to us actually planning the real ceremony. It's not a traditional wedding. We changed a lot of the format, made it our own, nothing that looks like a standard church and reception situation. And out of nowhere, Renee goes to my husband and asks if his nieces and nephews, her kids and one other sibling's kids, can put on some kind of performance at our wedding. A performance. At our wedding. From children who are all under 10 years old. My husband came to me privately, because that's how we do things. We don't make decisions about each other's families without talking first, and he asked what I thought. I didn't even have to sit and think about it. My gut reaction was immediate. I said no. And here's the thing. It wasn't really about the performance itself. It was about everything wrapped up in that request. This woman had shown zero interest in our wedding up to that point. Hadn't asked about the venue, the date, the theme, nothing. She barely acknowledged we were doing this at all. And suddenly she wants her kids to be the centerpiece of a moment during our ceremony, on the day that's supposed to be about us. I told my husband straight up, I don't trust her, and I don't think this is coming from a good place. He saw it differently at first. He thought maybe it was innocent, maybe she just thought it'd be sweet. I told him, you're looking at the request in isolation. I'm looking at the whole pattern. Because I'd watched, from the sidelines, how this family operated for years by that point. And my read on people, especially people who've shown me exactly who they are through their actions, tends to be pretty accurate. I ran it by my best friend. I ran it by a couple of my cousins and one of their partners. Every single one of them had the same reaction. That's a weird thing to ask for. Now sure, maybe they're biased because they love me, but when everyone you trust independently lands in the same place, that tells you something. And then I found out more details that made the whole thing even stranger. It wasn't just any performance. She wanted them to do a choreographed dance. These are not dancers. My husband actually laughed when I asked if they had any dance experience and said something like, there may be a 4 out of 10 on a good day. So now we're talking about untrained children doing a dance number at a wedding that isn't even structured for that kind of interruption, requested by a woman who'd shown no interest in the actual event otherwise. Something about it just kept nagging at me. Was this really about the kids wanting a fun moment? Or was this about Renee wanting to insert herself, and by extension her children, into the spotlight of someone else's wedding day? Because here's a detail I hadn't even mentioned yet. The youngest kid in that group is basically Velcroed to her parents. Cries the second she's separated from them for more than a few minutes. And one of the nephews is autistic and painfully shy, the kind of kid who visibly shrinks the moment attention turns toward him. You're going to put these 2 specific children under a spotlight, in front of a room full of strangers and extended family, and call that a nice gesture. I want to ask you something right here, because I ask myself this constantly during all of this. If someone came to you with a request like that, for your wedding, involving kids who clearly weren't suited for it, and the person asking had shown zero investment in your actual day. Otherwise, would your gut tell you it was innocent? Or would something feel off to you too? So my husband and I talked more, and I laid out my full case. I told him, listen, I will never tell you how to manage your family. That's not my place. But I need you to understand what I'm seeing, because I don't think you're seeing it the same way yet. He sat with it. He didn't fully agree with me in the moment, but he also didn't dismiss it either, which honestly says a lot about how far he'd come. A little while after all this stirred up between us, we ended up getting some outside input too. And one thing that stuck with me was somebody pointing out, hey, has anyone even bothered asking the actual kids if they want to do this? Nobody had. Not once in this entire process had anyone checked with the 4 children in question whether they had any interest whatsoever in performing a dance in front of a room full of adults on someone else's wedding day. So my husband decided to fix that. He decided he was going to go straight to the source. This is where things start moving fast, so stay with me. He sat down with his nieces and nephews, all of them together, and asked them directly. Did they want to do a dance at the wedding? Had anyone even asked them if they wanted to? Every single kid said no, everyone. And the oldest one, without missing a beat, looked at him and said, that would be so cringe. I love that kid for that honesty, genuinely. So now my husband has confirmation, straight from the children themselves, that this entire idea did not originate with them. It came from Renee, which meant the entire premise she'd sold him on, this sweet, innocent idea that the kids just wanted to be part of our day, was false from the start. With that in hand, he felt solid enough to shut it down for good. He decided to tell her in person rather than over text, because that's the kind of person he is, even with someone who'd taken advantage of him for years. He waited until they were alone in the car together. No audience, no kids in the back seat. And he told her straight, hey, about the dance thing, I've decided no. And I want you to picture this moment with me, because I wasn't there, but I heard every second of it play out afterward, and I could practically feel the temperature of that car rising through the phone. Her voice went up almost immediately. Why? Why would you say no to that? He told her simply that he just didn't want it. That should have been the end of the conversation. A no is a complete sentence. But instead she escalated, full volume, right there in a moving vehicle. She accused him of not loving her anymore, not loving her kids anymore, just completely out of nowhere, weaponizing the language of love and family loyalty over a dance number. He asked her, genuinely confused, why on earth she'd think that, and her answer floored him. She said it was because he wouldn't babysit for her anymore, and that it was hindering her life. Let that sink in for a second. Not because he said no to a dance request, because he stopped being her unpaid, unlimited, on-call childcare service after literal years of it. That's what she was actually upset about. The dance was just the trigger. He fired back, and I don't blame him one bit, asking her if she'd ever once considered that being her permanent free babysitter had been hindering their lives too, and reminding her calmly that he had absolutely no part in the decision to have those kids. That's when she completely lost it, screaming that he was selfish, that not everything is about him and me. On our wedding day, the one day that is, quite literally, supposed to be about the 2 people getting married, she's shouting that we're being selfish for wanting it to be about us. She threw in that he was playing favorites with me over her own children, as if choosing to prioritize your spouse over your sister's unrelated demand is some kind of betrayal. He asked her, and I think this is such a perfect response, how exactly he could be playing favorites between his wife and her kids when I'm literally his wife. Those aren't even the same category of relationship. She had no answer for that. She just kept screaming, full volume, spit flying, raging about how he was ruining her life and being a terrible uncle. At some point, he just told her to pull the car over, and he got out. Called an Uber, went straight to his cousin's place instead of going home to stew in it. When he got there, he told his parents what had happened. And instead of any kind of support, they immediately started trying to smooth it over on Renee's behalf. That's just how she is. You know how she gets. Classic deflection, minimizing her behavior instead of addressing it. He just told them no, and walked away. That was it. No debate, no guilt trip working on him this time. When he told me everything that had happened, I sat there stunned. Genuinely stunned. Because this confirmed everything I'd suspected from the very beginning. This was never about the kids wanting a special moment. This was about her wanting control, wanting attention, wanting to punish him for finally having boundaries, after years of letting her walk all over him. Here's where it gets a little unhinged, and I promise you it gets better. Renee blocked me on WhatsApp. Like, genuinely blocked me, the bride, over her brother telling her no about a dance recital. She deleted my husband's contact too, but strategically didn't fully block him, so she could still see his profile picture and his status updates, petty and calculated at the same time. Then she made absolutely sure he overheard her venting about the whole situation to a cousin, loud enough to catch, but framed like it wasn't for his ears. This woman is 40 years old. Eventually she cooled off and tried reaching back out. We didn't jump back to normal. We started what's called gray rocking, basically being polite and neutral, and giving her nothing to react to, no emotional fuel whatsoever. And then our wedding day arrived. I want you to hold on to everything I just told you, because now watch how differently things played out in person. The ceremony was genuinely perfect. Everything we'd planned, executed exactly how we wanted. His other sister, the one with none of Renee's drama, was radiant with genuine happiness for us all day. She complimented every detail and specifically thanked me for setting up an activity area with toys and books for all the kids. Said she could tell it had a woman's thoughtful touch, and that small moment genuinely meant a lot to me. Renee, on the other hand, was subdued almost the entire day. Barely spoke a word to either of us. Didn't approach, didn't offer congratulations, just sat there simmering. And then during the actual ceremony itself, she started wailing, loudly, emotionally. The kind of crying that's less, I'm overwhelmed with joy, and more, look at me right now. She got so worked up she had to leave and go sit in the bathroom. And here's the part that I think about a lot. Nobody stopped the ceremony. Nobody rushed after her. My husband and I certainly weren't paying her a second of attention. We were completely locked into each other in that moment, exactly the way you're supposed to be on your own wedding day. His mother eventually went and checked on her, but by that point the moment had already passed us by completely, exactly the way it should have. The kids, meanwhile, the same kids Renee had wanted to put through a forced dance recital, spent the reception just being kids, dancing on the floor with everyone else, having fun, completely unbothered by any of it, because nobody was making this event about them being on display. They got to just exist and enjoy the day, which frankly is exactly what should have happened from the beginning. Later that night, his father pulled me aside quietly and told me he could see how happy I made his son, and that's all he wanted for him. His mother, more reserved than usual but clearly pleased, kept showing off photos afterward. Apparently the whole thing had lived up to whatever standards she was measuring by. So let me ask you this. If you'd planned a day around your own love story, and someone tried to hijack a piece of it for their own attention, and it blew up in their face exactly like this, would you feel even a little bit of satisfaction watching it play out? Because I did. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Now here's the part that really recontextualizes the whole thing. The piece I only found out afterward. Renee's entire situation with the father of her kids. She was the other woman. He was already with someone else, my husband's other sister-in-law situation, essentially. When Renee got involved with him, she got pregnant on purpose, apparently convinced herself that if she had his baby, he'd leave his actual partner for her. He told her point blank to have an abortion. She refused. Then his actual partner also got pregnant around the same time. And instead of that being a wake-up call, Renee got jealous of the attention the other pregnancy was getting and doubled down. Had another kid, then another, trying to lock him down through sheer accumulation of children. Every single time he told her to terminate. Every single time she convinced herself he'd eventually choose her. He never did. He doesn't see those kids, doesn't pay a cent toward them. And she spent years chasing validation and attention any way she can get it, including, apparently, trying to insert her children into the spotlight of someone else's wedding. Once I understood that backstory, the whole dance request made a horrifying amount of sense. This wasn't about her kids having a magical moment. This was a woman who has spent her entire adult life trying to be the center of attention by any means necessary, finding one more opportunity to make that happen, and losing her mind when it didn't work. So where does that leave us now? We're still gray-rocking Renee. We're not pretending everything's fine. We're not rebuilding some warm relationship with her. But my husband still wants a relationship with his nieces and nephews, and with his one normal sibling and her kids. So we haven't gone fully no contact because we refuse to let the adult's dysfunction cost those kids a relationship with an uncle who genuinely loves them. We're also quietly distancing from his parents in the same way, mostly because of how easily they sided with her. And because it turns out my husband didn't even fully realize how deep their racism ran until I came into the picture. They're good at hiding it, apparently, until their son falls in love with a mixed-race woman, and suddenly all those careful masks start slipping. We bought a home about an hour away from all of them. We're not telling them exactly where. His other sister actually encouraged us to put distance between ourselves and his parents, which honestly told me a lot about which side of that family we can actually trust going forward. Here's what I keep coming back to, out of everything that happened. My husband spent years being the person everyone in his family could use without consequence. The free babysitter, the emotional punching bag, the one expected to bend every single time. And the moment he finally learned to say no, calmly, without guilt, without apologizing for it, the people who benefited from his silence lost their minds. That tells you everything you need to know about who actually valued him and who just valued what he did for them. So tell me, honestly, would you have said no the way I did right from the start before any of this even played out? Or do you think I jumped to conclusions too fast? I still think about that car ride sometimes, and I still can't believe a grown woman screamed at her own brother over a children's dance number he never even wanted in the first place.